Well, and the reason I have no news. I was just kind of feeling left out of other meetings. It felt like, no. It's typically this time of the year, or roughly this time, when I'm coming in front of you to give you state assessment results. And we're not this year, and I thought it would probably be good to explain why we're not, so you can kind of know the process and where we are. So looking back at state assessments that were given last year, 2017-18. There's a delayed release of information. We expect maybe to get student results back. The latest date that I've heard is the end of October. And the reason for that is this is year one of a new test written to the new Missouri Learning Standards. So technically this test is brand new. It's written to a new set of standards than any test that we've ever taken before. When you give a new test, there's a lot of data analysis that has to be done to set the levels. Advanced, proficient, basic, below basic. Once they have all the test results back, they then go through, analyze the results, and they draw the lines of what scores fall into each category. That takes quite a bit of time. DESE, for some reason, sent out a memo just this week detailing that process. It goes all the way from local teachers, Missouri teachers looking at questions, all the way up to national testing experts and the process that they go through. So it takes time to do that, and so that's why we don't have scores back. We would expect to maybe get them back first semester and have some type of summary, but we'll see. I assume that will happen. That's kind of the plan. So later this semester, we'll have some information for you on that. Now, the math and ELA, those were brand new tests that we took last year, so we will have first year scores on those. Science, we will get no scores. Last year, science was a field test, a practice test, so we will receive no science scores. Social studies, we only give one test in social studies in the state of Missouri, and that's a government EOC test. That one has not changed. We did get government results back, but that's for high school U.S. government students. And we have not received our ACT scores yet. Now, ACT is not part of the Missouri testing system. I just wanted to throw that's usually part of the presentation as well. We don't have those numbers back yet. Because of the delayed release of scores, that also means a delayed release of our APR, our annual performance report, which is the state's evaluation of us. I would also preview that a little bit. As I mentioned, we will have no science scores, so the APR will be devoid of science scores this year, which will change the entire scale. And I would say that's typically bad for us. A lot of districts were happy that science scores weren't included. For us, science is a particular strength of our district, so we would like those scores to be in there. They will not be in there. If you remember back, we had to throw out all of the Algebra 1 and English 2 scores a year ago. So we'll have none of that data in the APR as well. There will be some holes there. The APR is going to have a lot of holes. We're going to have formulas for how to handle it, but that's what it's formulas to try and cover up the holes that are there. So all of this is a bit of a mess on the APR and will continue to be until we have 3 solid years of data that can be computed, which is going to be a while. I'll show you on the next screen. But we will, the math and ELA, we will kind of we will not compare these scores back to past years because it's a whole new test. We will consider this a baseline year for us for growth purposes that we can build off of. So that's going to be kind of the approach we take. The DESE had a good snapshot of what the testing looks like this year. The red arrow represents 2018-19. You can see English, language, arts, and math goes into year 2 that we will take this spring. So these are tests that we will give this year. Will be in year 2. Science will be year 1. Last year was the field test. This year is a social studies field test for us at the government level. So next year we will receive no social studies scores. So that will be a while before the APR catches up on that. We will still give it. It still counts for students who are required to take it. We will just receive no scores. And then Missouri is also offering a new personal finance assessment. We don't use the personal finance assessment. It's not required. It's one that kids can take to test out of personal finance if they don't wish to take the class. We offer the class. We have very few kids who ask to take the personal finance assessment, but it's listed on their assessment chart, so I thought I would mention it here. But kids do have that option if they would like to do that. So I'm going to move on to a little bit that we're doing new this year for local assessment. Is any questions about state assessment before I change off that topic? So coming, TBD. Okay. I mentioned to you a little bit some, but I just wanted to maybe put this in here. When it comes to assessment, we try not to rely on the state assessment one-day testing to really tell us how we are doing, how our kids are doing. We hope to do that through better local assessment. So this year we are introducing a new local assessment called the NWEA MAP. MAP has nothing to do with the Missouri testing program. It's an unfortunate coincidence in naming.
Can we just delete that?
I think that would be fine. Northwest Education Association Measure of Academic Progress.
How about just the NWEAM?
Maybe we'll just call it NWEA and just leave it at that. It's an adaptive assessment, meaning that we will start kids on a level, but then it will react up and down to their responses, correct or incorrect, and it will keep going until it finds their true level of performance, whether it's a grade or multiple grade levels above where they are or possibly below. So it will go up and down. That comes with some frustration for kids, especially those very high achieving kids who are used to taking assessment and getting everything right. On this assessment, it's designed that you will get half the questions right and half the questions wrong, and 50% will not feel comfortable for a lot of kids. So we're going to have to kind of talk with students about that, because they will hit a frustration level naturally that maybe they're not used to hitting. But we were going to give this in all grades 2 through 9. I won't get too far down in the weeds. 9 will look a little bit different than 2 through 8 just because of the high school structure. But we will do this 3 times a year. We are trying to balance not being a district that over-assesses all the time. I see some districts present and they assess, and that's not what we're about. We're about teaching and learning. So the assessment will occur 3 times a year, toward the beginning of the year, middle, and then toward the end. And over that time, we hope to be able to see the growth that we're seeing in students. Okay? The old assessments that we give typically tested students on the standards at their grade level. So we could tell you for a 5th grade student how they're doing just on 5th grade standards. But it didn't give us the ability to go above and below and see truly where they're performing. That's what we're hoping to do with this assessment, is identify where kids are and provide enrichment that meets them where they need to be. For that purpose, we will pair the NWEA with an online learning tool called ExactPath. We can feed the NWEA results into ExactPath, and it will build individual learning paths for students and give them lessons and activities at their level with what they're ready to learn. That will be the language that we use through NWEA, is it will identify what students are ready to learn. Okay? So we will feed individual learning paths. Our plan is to implement that during the response to intervention time at each of the buildings to get a little more value out of that. And again, it's focused on meeting kids at the level they are, whether it's below or above grade level. This will fill in some gaps for those kids that have some gaps, is the idea. And it will take those kids who are performing above grade level and give them some enrichment activities beyond what we might otherwise be able to do, and push them and stretch them a little bit. So this will be the major focus of the Professional Development Day coming up next Friday, September 14th. We'll be breaking teachers into small groups with trainers throughout the district. Dr. Dare will be a trainer, and we will work with teachers on the early implementation, just the nuts and bolts of how do you get on to NWEA, how do you find your students, how do you push out the test, how do you give it, all those small details that hopefully make this smooth and make it run okay. We will follow up on the second CSD day in October with training about, we've given it, you've got the data, what now? What can I learn from this? What is this telling me? What am I learning about my kids by looking at this information, and what do I do with it? So September will be the how do we do it. October will be the what now, how do I move forward. So that's kind of the plan that we'll be rolling out this fall. So excited about it. Anytime you do something, this is extensive. This is not, I mean, this is a lot. This is a big deal. When you do something new like this, I'm sure there will be things that we learn along the way that we want to do differently, but we're trying very hard to lay out a very well thought out plan, cover all the details, so that the bumps are minor as we go along. So.
How long is this test? Like, how long will the student be tested?
So that really depends on the student.
I see they'll keep giving them questions.
It will go until the computer finds the level. I would anticipate what they tell you is a class period. Our experience in piloting this in some classrooms last year was some will be done in a class period. Those very meticulous workers who take their time and try their best to solve every problem will go up to probably 2 class periods.
And where did this test come from?
It's from the state of Washington, so it's a national level test. It is aligned with Missouri standards, but we will get information about percentile performance for our kids in the district, where they rank as compared to other kids in the district, in the state, and nationally, how our kids are performing as compared to all those different levels. Now, I'm less interested in that's kind of cool. I think it's neat to see, but it will break down for each student in each subject level the point that they're at, what they're ready to learn next. So what we'll be doing is presenting teachers with, here's your class of 25 students. You can select an individual objective that your class is getting ready to cover. You can pull that up on NWEA, and you can see a scatter plot of where your kids are for those who have learned it and are ahead, those who are ready to learn it, and those who have some gaps that we may need to cover before we expect them to master this.
I think it sounds great, Chris.
Well,
But in what format does that plan come back to them from Exact Path?
so it's
I'm
an
trying to
online
picture what that
program.
looks
So it's
like.
an online program where kids will log on. It's similar to, you guys haven't used, we have a program now called Study Island. And you can get on Study Island and it asks you questions and does lessons. Exact Path is similar to that. In fact, it's owned by the same company. But what this is able to take the NWEA scores and then generate in math. Let's say the point that they're ready to learn. It will give them math problems and math lessons at that lesson that they can solve on the computer. And of course, it has all the win prizes and gather trinkets as motivational factors. But it's basically a skill builder tool that they can work on independently where they can get feedback on how they're doing on those objectives.
So that's replacing Exact Path is replacing Study Island.
Yes. We are, since it comes from the same company, they allowed us to keep our Study Island for a fraction of what it was before. So we will still have that available in some areas, social studies. And I'll tell you, the science we may not give the science. The math and English represents 3 assessments. It's math, reading, and language arts are 3 assessments. Throw in a 4th test of science, and the feedback that I got from teachers, I'm starting to tiptoe into shutting down school for a lot of testing. And so the science, we're going to visit with them more on the CSD day. My thought is we'll hold off on that for a year, especially during this first year when we're trying this for the first time. Focus on those 3 math and English assessments, stop there. We may open up the possibility of science at the junior high and maybe, probably junior high level, where they have a dedicated science class and give those teachers an opportunity to try it out and give us some feedback on it, because that would be that's a new experience on the science side.
But then use Study Island for social studies or science.
So Study Island is there. There are some teachers that are strong believers in it, and we're having a hard time giving it up. We were pleased that Ed Mintum was able to offer it to us at a price that seemed reasonable and within our comfort zone. So we still have it, and there are some teachers who will still be using it.
Sorry, I had to step out there just for a
That's right.
second. Are these tests given all at the same time, or will it be staggered throughout?
So we'll have like a 2-week test. After the 14th is a Friday. the schedule that we're going to set is we're going to open up the testing window for everyone over the next 2 weeks. So a teacher, a homeroom teacher at an elementary level, will select when they want to give the assessment during that 2 weeks. So they can give it anytime they want. It's not a mass testing situation. At the middle school, where you have teaching teams, where kids are maybe attending math with one teacher and English with another, they'll work together to schedule that within their time and within their team. So all we're going to try to ask them to do is try to have the first round of testing done in the next 2 weeks after the 14th. That gives us time to get results, and when we're working with testing results on that second CSD date, we want to be working with their kids' test results and not dummy data. We want them to have their kids' information to really look at and dive into, is what we're hoping to get done.
Really sounds like it's going to be individualized instruction.
Yeah.
I mean, like really get to what each student needs.
So this is year one, like I said. I'm sure there will be some bumps, so we'll have some updates throughout the year and let you know how things are going. We think this is a really great opportunity for us and our kids, and to maybe think about teaching and learning a little bit differently, especially the assessment side from what we've done in the past, and really focusing on growth. So I'm hopeful.
What sort of primer do the kids get? Do you guys talk to them before the testing starts or anything like that, or that they leave that up to the teachers?
They do produce videos that you can show the students, and so we'll preview those with the teachers. Mainly it's kind of the same thing that we tell them before state assessment is we don't want overly stressed. We don't want you getting yourself to the point where you're worked up or frustrated. Simply do your best. Try to answer the questions. The whole idea about an adaptive test, that will be a new discussion that we have with them. I think that's going to be important for them to understand that it's designed for them to miss questions. And no matter what we tell them, they're going to be frustrated. There's no doubt. But hopefully that will be the reassurance as they're going along of just keep trying. You're doing fine. That's what the test is designed to do, is to find where you start struggling. So it is going to happen. So, okay.
That's been happening, they don't need to be here.